bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for the afternoons. This is a little bit of the slow part of the afternoon. So, but I'm glad to see you here because this session is one of my my favorite sessions because we get to talk about some information that we put out there last year at the summit, and we heard from these panel members on programs that they wanted to institute or ideas that they had for moving recycling forward. And now we get to hear what they did in this last year. So I think that's a really exciting thing because not only are we supposed to be here to listen and understand, but we're also supposed to go out and do. And so these guys have gone out and done. And it would be really nice to hear from them on new things, new ways to do things, and be encouraged by that. So I'll briefly introduce our 4 panel members, and I know them all, so this is not a prepared bio, this is just what I know about them. The first speaker we'll have is Jeff Jewett, and last year at this time on this panel, I spoke about the difficulty in recycling mattresses in our community, and that mattresses were a big problem for landfills, and that it had really become time to do something about it. And now Jeff is here to tell us what we can do about it, and he is actually doing something about it. So we're really happy that Jeff is here. And then next to him we have Eric Michaels, and Eric is going to come and talk to us about the latest in household hazardous waste and recycling that material. Last year we heard from Dan Moore about some potential paint legislation that was coming up, and some other legislation that may show up, and some other policies that may show up. And now Eric gets to come and tell us what's really happening now. Next to him we have Greg Schneider, and Greg was here talking about ways to recycle skis, something we have a lot of in our community. That's a major tourism industry. Well, now Greg gets to come and fill us in on how that process that he told us last year, how that process is working. Next, we have Jason Utgar, and Jason is the owner of a local store called The Spotted Door. All the material in that store is recycled or repurposed. So we have a lot of information here, and a lot of people out there doing the things that we should be encouraged to maybe take a step out and do. So the first person we'll hear from is Jeff Jewett, and each of them will speak for between 5 and 10 minutes, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for questions. Okay? Thanks. Here's Jeff.
Technology works. How's everybody doing? We awake still? Survive? Excellent. And thanks for being here. I'm really excited to listen to what the other panelists have to say today, and in order to be speaking here. I'm talking about mattress recycling today. So, how many of you knew before today that there was any mattress recycling going on in the valley? Okay, good. Maybe half of you. Excellent. Can you hear me if I step away a little bit? Is that okay? Good. Well, we're a locally owned. I say we, my wife and I, the family-owned, family-run business here in Salt Lake. We're a social enterprise, so we're driven by certainly our environmental mission of diverting mattresses and box springs when they're at their end of life. So when they're going to be replaced with a new one, we want to divert those from the landfill by manual deconstruction. So we manually deconstruct mattresses and box springs, and then ensure that the materials are then recycled into new product. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we go. We're also driven by our mission of employment opportunities for those that face barriers in re-entering the workforce. So, folks that may have made some bad choices and found themselves incarcerated, found themselves homeless, struggling with addiction, you name it. We believe in second chances and really look at this business model to be a great first stop for someone as they're starting to rebuild their life. So we can kind of get into a little bit more about the industry. So roughly 35 to 40 million mattresses produced annually in the U.S. 95% of those are produced domestically. So the great thing, for the most part, your mattress that you buy will be made in USA. So definitely support that. About 20 million units are disposed of annually per ISTA for the International Sleep Products Association. They've done a lot of research and really leading the charge on best practice around mattress recycling and how to institute these various programs. They're actually the governing body that is managing legislation in the 3 states, Connecticut, California, and Rhode Island. So just in our valley alone, roughly 150,000 mattresses, that's an estimate, mattresses and box springs are being disposed of annually. And so if you just take the mattresses out of that figure, roughly half of those, you're looking at over 5 billion pounds of waste that's going to the landfill. And that's, again, just the mattresses on that side. The box spring foundations tend to weigh roughly 25 pounds. So that's kind of where we stand both on a national level and more of a local level. Of course, I'm not going to get too technical with the compression rates of mattresses. That's really the big hurdle for the landfills, is that these don't compress like regular waste. And therefore, they're taking up more space, roughly 40 cubic feet, depending on who you ask, per mattress that these are taking up in the landfill. And so when they don't compress as much, the opportunity costs that are associated with mattresses versus other waste, that gets into where it can make a lot of sense to keep these out of the landfill, not just environmentally, but from a cost standpoint as well. So where do end-of-life mattresses end up right now? So retailer, a hauler, consumer, they're now taking these to the landfill. We hope more and more, a recycler, renovator, or refurbisher, or they're illegally dumping, which thankfully everything we hear, there's not a whole lot of that happening. That's something we want to always combine our efforts to avoid that epidemic. Just to touch on renovators real quick, that's a big part of what's happening here in the Salt Lake Valley and Wasatch Front. So a lot of retailers right now, will use a renovator like this that will haul off their old pieces, and then they'll be resurfaced in some fashion or cleaned in some fashion and then resold. Now, it's legal to sell a used mattress if it's clearly tagged, the right color tag, the right size, but it's still a pretty interesting market and one that's pretty controversial, mainly based on the fact that, according to a lot of these retailers we've talked to, about 85% of these, 75 to 85% of these mattresses going to the refurbishers or renovators are still being landfilled. They're not able to be resold in any capacity. So that's unfortunate on that side. So what do we find in your mattress? There's a lot of material, obviously. These steel, for instance. We're able to recycle the coils and the springs from mattresses and box springs. That's made into rebar, just north of here at the Newport facility. So, the mattress, the foam, both the memory foam, the regular foam, and the top layer, which is the pellet top, that's all made into carpet pad. So that's all baled, sent to a facility that shreds and then rebonds into carpet pad. The wood is chipped and then colored for landscape mulch, or our hope that it happens more and more in terms of biofuel use. They can make wooden pellets for stoves or furnaces. And the fiber, right now we recycle the cotton that's used in green insulation operations. So sorry the picture's not a little bit brighter there, but this is just some pictures of our operation. We've got Jesse deconstructing a mattress on the table there that's made of mattress box springs, the box foundation. Virtually everything in our warehouse is then recycled in itself, our equipment, our tables. And then that bottom part are just everything in action. We're our stored product, and we have just right at about 6,000 square feet of space at our warehouse. And here you can see all the spring coils on top, and then down below is all the foam that's been baled that's ready to be loaded, sent to the carpet pack facility. So just to look at some numbers, just some environmental impacts we've been able to have since June 16, 2014. That's really our official start date. We've been able to divert 3,896 mattresses and box springs, and so that equates to over 115,000 pounds of steel, over almost 41,000 pounds of foam. Well over 50,000 pounds of wood, although we don't have an accurate number on that because they just haul it out by the dumpster loads, and they don't give us a weight on that. 2,800 pounds of sheet plastic. A lot of our mattresses are coming out in plastic, and 2,500 pounds of cotton. So that's just a little bit of numbers there. And last slide. Just some contact info and resources. Certainly our website, springbackutah.com. Love you to visit us there. And Access Recycling Council. They're where I got they're the entity where I got some of these numbers from. Again, industry leader in this area, and just encourage you to visit their site for more information on recycling on a national level. So thank you very much. Look forward to questions later.
Okay, so I manage the Household Hazardous Waste Program for the Salt Lake County Health Department. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go through this entire report. This is our annual report for last year. Just mainly what we focused on for the year in recycling. Household hazardous waste is a bit of a misnomer because a lot of the things that come through our program is usable product. We deal with paint, antifreeze, other automotive chemicals, jack wash, anything you can imagine. So there's a lot of things that are useful besides the waste. And last year we began, and that's a view of our facility. We've been around for 20 years. We have one in Salt Lake County landfill and at Transjordan landfill down in the southern part of the valley, Salt Lake. A big thing on the right-hand side, you might not be able to read it, but battery disposal. Alkaline batteries have come through the program for a long time. The best means of disposal of batteries in the past, really they're non-toxic. Really landfilling or incineration has been the only methods of disposal. But now there's a company that we've contracted with that has a non-thermal process of reclaiming all the constituent metals from alkaline batteries, which is really nice because residents, it's a service that residents want because even though they're not a hazardous material, they do come with rechargeable batteries that are hazardous. Residents want those recycled, so we began recycling them last year, and we so far disposed over 2,000 pounds of alkaline batteries alone, and it's a pretty easy process for us. In other items that we, I'm going to focus on chemicals. About 1 million pounds of chemicals came through the facility last year. We were able to recycle car batteries, antifreeze, used oil, and some of our paint we have reused. So last year alone, 213,000 pounds of materials was either recycled or reused. And I'm going to talk more about the reuse stuff today. The big problem of finding a source or to reuse these items is finding the partnerships. And even though we might have usable product, it's really hard to find partners sometimes that can take the bulk, the amount we have. So this year we began a partnership with a few school districts to take all of our unused automotive chemicals to shop classes. It just began in the fourth quarter of last year. The shop teachers are ecstatic that they can get, they're not paying for these chemicals, and kids can use these for free. We see that this is going to really expand this year because summer is our really busy season. Another big partnership that we've made in the past year was with Habitat for Humanity and the Restore in Salt Lake City. We've been able to send most of our reusable paint to Habitat for Humanity, and they end up benefiting the community as a whole when they can sell it for $1 to $3 per gallon. Then road flares, we've worked with police departments. Recently, Twilla, we've worked with to give as many road flares as they want. It's amazing. I don't know why people have so many road flares out there, but they do, and they come to us. And every time we can give away something, we're saving the county money because we don't have to pay for the disposal of these products. For instance, fertilizer. That is a really useful product. We get a lot of fertilizers that don't have herbicides or pesticides in them, and we've been able to partner with nurseries that can use this product and just use it in their nursery. Now they're benefiting in the community, not having to pay. They don't have to buy new fertilizer, and we don't have to pay for disposal of that fertilizer. And so that's what we're doing right now. Partnerships are huge for us to make the reuse grow. In the future, really small writing here, what we're looking for, we're hoping to recycle all of our paint. I know there's legislation hopefully on the way where there'd be a fee to new paint purchase to fund the disposal of paint. But before that comes online, we are looking to have our paint recycled. We're in the process of putting an RFP out right now. Paint recycling as an industry hasn't come to Utah, but hopefully with this RFP we can bring it to Utah because we have such a volume of paint that a company really can be profitable taking this paint and recycling it. Alone last year, paint was 43% of our total volume of chemicals, so we disposed of around 430,000 pounds of paint. And that's not even including the paint that we gave away to the good paint that the Restore took. So next year, at least last year, we recycled or reused 24%. With recycling all of our paint in the future, we're looking to up that by 43%, looking around 65, 68% of all of our chemicals that come in to be recycled. And again, it's really partnerships. I've learned through about the recycling of paint from my colleagues in Colorado, where there is a lot of paint recycling already happening, and it really has behooved us to talk to other people and work with the community to dispose of all these chemicals. Not dispose, sorry, see, I already said it, dispose too many times, to reuse the chemicals. So that's my little spiel, and I'll take questions afterwards. Thanks.
Anyway, my name's Greg Schneider, as I already said, and basically we put together a program which is sponsored by the Snow Sports Industries of America. And the program is called Snow Sports Recycling Program. Should just do slideshows, talk. All right, who's that? So anyway, just to give you a little bit of a history on the industry itself and what's produced. Since 1980, the industry has produced about 1 million sliding devices, so that includes skis and snowboards. And what we have on an annual basis is somewhere around 5 million participants in the sport. I always ask this question when I give this little speech: how many of you are skiers or snowboarders? Can you show or raise your hands? Okay, and of those people that raise their hands, how many have some skis or snowboards sitting around your house? Yeah, pretty much about the same amount. And I sometimes I go around, so like you, sir, in the orange jacket, why do you hang on to your old skis?
Don't really know what to do with them, and might want to go rock skiing someday.
Exactly, that's the best one. We always see that was always came back. We did a very formal study on this, and one of the things that came back is, well, they kept it for sentimental value. They didn't want to put it in the trash can because they didn't want to see them with that cross going on. Even though when we're up on ski, we want to cross it for skis every time, but they didn't want to see it in their trash cans. And then there's the good one, rock skiing, and everybody goes rock skiing, right? Correct. Yeah. So anyway, these people hold on to this equipment for various reasons. We don't know why. But so this creates this challenge for us, and it's where there's this enormous amount of equipment sitting out there just dormant, just waiting to be collected. Now, when I started this program, it wasn't like somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, Greg, here's a white paper and here's a case study on how to recycle skis." In my researching of the recycling of skis, there was only one case that I saw, and that was in Europe. And Europe was basically incinerating it. They were using it to fire kilns for cement factories over there. Which to me, I was like, oh, okay, now we're, this seems like a very environmentally unfriendly way to approach this. So anyway, I set up what was in the beginning was a spoke and hub model. We had a company up in Loveland, Colorado that received a grant from the state of Colorado to purchase equipment, and with that purchase, we were then going to process all the skis up there. But what happened? So when we worked with the spoke and hub model, basically we would have work in the urban areas, and we also would work in the rural areas. And what we quickly found out is that anytime you're transporting this stuff large or great distances, you run into situations where your costs go up extremely, just off the charts. I can't even tell you how much shipping. And on top of that, the problems that we have with it also is the fact that the cost for shipping always is fluctuating. It never remains the same. So if you have a budget set up for that, all of a sudden you can be confronted with, oh no, there's a fuel surplus, and it's like, oh my goodness, how do you cope with this situation? Also, with the original model, we were working with consolidators and aggregators. We actually worked here locally with Momentum, and we had tremendous relationships with these individuals, but usually it wasn't their core business. A lot of times they had some other form of recycling. In Momentum's case, they were working with glass as their core business. So they did this out of passion for recycling, and also their involvement in the outdoor sports and their participation in it. Then part of those costs that we had to incur was also the fact that there was handling, and again I referred to the transportation fees. So we had to compensate our consolidators and aggregators, and then there was also the transportation fees on top of it. So looking at this, like any business, you have to look at your cost structure, and then you also have to look at your processes, ways to improve your processes and ways to improve your bottom line. So we looked at, first of all, that it was very difficult for us to service the rural markets because it was for one, we work in Colorado is where we started the program. And the resorts there, unlike Utah, which is, 40 minutes away from the airport, you have, from Denver to up to Vail or places like that, it's about a 2-hour drive or so. So again, we're having that transportation cost that we had to pick up. So what we decided is that we were going to keep it to the urban areas, and that it would be responsibility of these rural areas to bring it down into the urban centers, because a lot of times the resorts or the retail outlets in those areas were having trucks going down empty to pick up supplies and then going back up. So that was kind of how we've been working with those entities. So we created a centralized location, and then what we do is working together with the retailers, the resorts, and the manufacturers. It's their responsibility. What we've set up now is, and in this case, I'm going to use Salt Lake because we've used it as the pilot program for this new model. Ashley Yoder has been very instrumental in helping us put together a test bed where we now put 2 dumpsters at their landfill, and what happens is the retailer, resort, or the manufacturer drives through, gets weighed, goes over and separates it into the 2 bins. We have one for the skis, the hard goods, and then the other one is for the polymers, which would be basically the ski boots, which then again cuts down our costs. And then what we have is a mobile unit at the end of the season that comes in, and that mobile unit processes all of the equipment right there on the side. Again, we're cutting down on our carrier costs, and we're cutting down on handling costs. And then what happens at that point, the materials are directly shipped to the end user. So in the past, we were shipping the boots that had had buckles on it. We were shipping skis that had a lot of metal in them. And when you look at the mass balance in the skis alone, there's somewhere between 30 to 40% of that ski is metal. So what we do now with this process, we can extract all of those metals and keep them in the local market. So no longer are we shipping the metal up to Loveland. And on top of that, with taking the boots into consideration, we have been able to densify the boot. Because before we were just shipping a lot of air, because when you look at a boot, it has a cavity, and that cavity is just empty. And so now what we've done is we've densified, and then those boots go up to our Loveland processing facility where they're finished up there. This is kind of what it looks like. This is our mobile unit. We use a very heavy industrial shredders and trommels to separate the materials. We're pulling out the ferrous metals. And one of the biggest challenges I had in the beginning was trying to deal with stainless steel, because all the magnets that we used in the beginning were all the metals that we used in the beginning weren't strong enough to pull out the stainless steel. And when I worked with the people in the industry, they said, "Oh no, you'll never be able to get it." Well, anyway, we had to resort to getting some rare earth magnets out of China to pull this particular metals out. We also go through a screening process, which pulls out the lumber grade fines, and then we also have an air separation process that pulls out the plastics. So basically what we've done is we've reduced our operation costs, we have less freight costs, we've increased control, which is really an important thing, because when you're dealing with so many different entities, it gets really difficult to figure out what the right hand is doing with the left hand. This program now allows us to be scalable. We can take on millions of pounds, where in the past we had a problem with our processor up in Loveland because they can only process after the fact, finding out that they can only process about 1,000 pounds an hour. So that line would have been going 24/7, 365. And so we wanted to make sure that we didn't create a bottleneck there. We can accelerate this program on a national rollout. We basically now can take it to anywhere where there's an urban setting, high concentration of ski equipment, and move from there. And then also, it's easier for us to implement because we're not having to deal with middlemen. And we've had some situations, not with Momentum, but with other entities that they were taking the equipment in for us, and then they were selling it out the back door and different things like this. So these are lessons learned. And also, one of the big things within the industry is that the manufacturers want assured destruction. They don't want people to be taking this, like I mentioned, taking it and selling it somewhere else. So here's what you did. So on the left-hand side here, this is the first, we campaigned this through our system about 3 or 4 times. This is after first one, and then after your first campaign, and then you go through it several times, then you're left with these fines here, which is the wood, which then can be used in composite lumbers. Now, composite lumbers, people say, well, why? Okay, well, they always think of decking, but there's a lot of other uses for it, such as furniture, and I'll go into that a little bit more later on. Here's the boots. This is our first shred. You can probably hard to see because we got a little bit of line, but that's the first shred on the boots. We get it down into those fractions there, and then we can take it and pelletize it, which at that point in time, it can be used, it can be repurposed in injection molding, any other processes there. Here's one of the products that we've been working on. And again, I'm afraid this is going to be hard for you to see, but this is called powder impression molding, which is a technology that came out of the UK. And basically what they do is they put 2 skins on the outside, and then what they have on the inside is a foaming agent, and you can put any of your unusable or things that don't have a value to them inside the middle of this. But what's unique about this is you can take these, and this can be, it's a heat thermal press process, but once it goes through its life cycle, you can take this again, run it through, and then you can recreate this same product over and over. We're continuing testing with Washington State University with their composites lab, working on physical properties, reactive properties, and formulation and tests. And formulation and testing, again, when you start getting products that are going into the general use for public consumption, you always have to go through this process. And again, it's always so difficult, and this is one of the challenges that I've had, is finding people that will produce using our materials, and because the question they always ask me is, well, what kind of tonnage can you give me on a monthly basis? Well, the problem is I can't give them any projections because you never know how much you're going to have at any given time. So what we do now is, for instance, we're taking this what we've learned at Washington State University, and then we're applying it to different industries such as the outdoor furniture, retail fixtures, expos and conventional materials for paneling and stuff like that that we recycle, construction materials and agriculture. My slides are missing here. Anyway, well, a couple slides missing. So, I guess that my time's up anyway. So I'll wait until everybody else asks questions at the end, and we'll try to answer them as much as possible. Let's go.
Okay. My name is Jason Utgard. I'm the founder of a website called The Spotted Door. It focuses mainly and actually exclusively on products made from recycled and reclaimed materials. I'll just give you a really quick background. I kind of grew up in retail. My father started a sporting goods company called Sportsman's Warehouse, and kind of grew up working in distribution and merchandising and product design and all these sorts of things within retail. And when you work at the focal point of a big retail operation, you just see the amount of materials coming in there and then going out to stores to really never be seen again. And you really get a kind of pure understanding of the amount of waste that we're kind of producing through our consumption. And I moved on from there to work at Overstock.com, and through there I was sourcing new products and all sorts of things. And I was finding a lot of great brands that were really kind of a no-name brand that were using recycled content in the products that they were producing. I thought it was so cool, and I had never really seen products like that before. I'd never known that you could turn plastic bottles into clothing and these sorts of things. And I was trying to find where I could buy these types of products, and I really couldn't find that outlet. And so I just decided back in 2013, we launched on Earth Day to start the Spotted Door as an outlet for anyone to access products that are just made from recycled and reclaimed materials. And on the flip side, give those companies that are focusing on that an outlet to really display their products and sell their products, knowing that essentially they're in good company and they're not being kind of lost on like the Amazons of the world and other places where they kind of get pushed to the side. I'm just, and I'm going to let this run and kind of show you a whole bunch of the different materials and types of products that you can make from those. I just think it's really interesting that once we get people to look at something that has initially lost its function, to then have them look at that item as not just a broken thing that doesn't have a function, but as a material that still has some function that can be turned into something else. And so this is going to go probably, I don't know, a couple more examples here, but just to kind of give you a visual of type of products. And the goal is to try to focus on materials that you don't think of. It might not be something that you place in your curbside bin at home necessarily. Those are roof shingles. This is actually a glue that's made in California from styrofoam. These are fishing nets. Turned into a skateboard. That's Ocean Plastic and the same company in the UK designing footwear from those. And so that's the general idea of the store. And we've been around, we'll be 2 years old in April, and it's just kind of continuing to find those materials that are really hard to recycle and finding the technology out there to use to then turn that into everyday items that you would need. So for example, today I'm wearing all recycled products. My shirt and my pants are both recycled bottles, bicycle inner tube, recycled rubber shoes. I'm not like itching or breaking out in hives or smelling, and that's the goal. And so, long term, what's the spotted door going to be? It's going to stay focused on recycled materials, but the more I've kind of realized in kind of designing and building and sourcing a lot of these products is that people don't know that they exist. For example, we used to sell some sunglasses that were made from recycled CDs and carbonized rice husk. That blows people's mind when they realize that people are actually taking CDs and turning them into sunglasses. And just being online, that makes it even more difficult for me running this to try to get it in front of the right people, because you don't go on to Google when you get home at night and search for things that you don't even know exist, right? And so kind of the long-term goal now is kind of looking at taking this offline. It's going to be kind of a blended approach, but I think having a store that people can visit and touch and feel these items and see them firsthand and kind of have that educational component as part of it is going to be where the Spotted Door is going to be headed. It's still going to be an online store, but that's, I think, kind of our long-term plan. So that's about it. Pretty short. So, 5 minutes.
So everybody was really conscious of the time. Thanks for that. I didn't have to do much moderator duty. But we do have a few more minutes for questions. If anybody has some, I can come back. No?
I think it was Jeff. Could you be going through more mattresses, or are you kind of at capacity right now?
No, we can go through a lot more. We've been. Yeah, no, we're ready to really go way more in terms of capacity than we're at. We we can go about 6 employees total, full time at any given shift. We could even run double shifts. So to give you an idea, an employee can process 35 to 40 mattresses or box springs per day. So we can be right around 250 to 300 pieces a day, and so yeah, we have a lot of room to be able to grow.
I have a question for Jason. So do you buy products that are already made then? So this isn't something where you would facilitate maybe the recycling of a product. Like if it were, if somebody had, like you showed the whiskey barrels, if somebody had a warehouse of whiskey barrels, could you help facilitate the recycling of that, or would you just buy the end product?
We've actually kind of, initially it was just, let's establish an outlet to kind of essentially close the loop to some cliche. I think a lot of times people place things in their curbside bin, they never see it again. And I think if people had a sense of where these materials were resurfacing in their everyday life, at a store where they're probably buying something that they need, like clothing or furniture or what have you, they would think twice before they put it in the bin. So that was, the initial, first year of the site was just to get a broad selection of items on there, and kind of now we've actually started to be contacted by people that say, I have a lot of X, Y, Z, and do you know how I could, have it turned into something, or I saw something out of this on your site, or at one point. And so we have actually kind of started facilitating those relationships. One was this woman out in Washington. She was selling these placemats. It was kind of the reverse logistics part of it. They were made out of recycled felt, 100% made in the USA. And we actually got contacted by somebody who just was looking for that and was wondering, like, I don't need placemats, but I need a lot of that felt for these bags that I'm making, and I was hoping to get that. So it's kind of been this kind of weird kind of back and forth, but that's also was a long-term idea for the site, was to have some type of customer portal where people would log in and they could say, I always have a ton of this at my company. It's an offshoot of whatever it might be, and they basically log a quantity or whatever it might be, and then companies out there that are looking for whatever that material might be or might be looking to expand their operations can see, like, I can see that there's so much fit in these areas and that sort of thing, kind of act as a service, if you will. So, yeah, kind of like an exchange. So there's a lot of ideas like that out there, but initially it was just the products, and now it's kind of gotten into a bunch of other things.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it works.
My question is for Eric. Eric, what do you do with your batteries?
So right now, we have two companies. So car batteries, we contract with a company that takes them and recycles the lead. We have a separate company that will take all the rechargeable batteries, like the household rechargeable batteries and alkaline batteries. We ship them to Arizona, where they sort them, so we get charged per battery type. So they go through where we send them. We send 3 55-gallon drums at a time, and then once they have a full semi-load, they send it to their plant in Michigan, where they have a non-thermal process to break it down into the constituent metals.
Okay, so who are the companies?
So I believe Vance Battery is the company that we're contracting with on the alkaline batteries. And I can give you that information if you like.
How many pounds of batteries will you take at one time?
For residents, any. For businesses, there is a charge. And also residents from outside of Salt Lake County, there would be a charge. But we do not place a limit on the amount of waste we take at one time.
I got a question.
What is the strangest thing you've ever collected at one of these events? I mean, the weirdest things show up at these events, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I think last year the strangest one was a 5-gallon bucket of frogs. Yeah, so frogs that were in formaldehyde, I believe. So that's the one that is on the top of my mind, is the 5-gallon frogs. I know the staff, they were thinking how they could Well, probably pulled a prank on me, so. Yeah, that was definitely the weirdest last year. I don't know, Dorothy, do you have any ideas?
We once got the spears that they used in the Vietnam War that would have a poison on the tip of them. They were actually brought to us as well, and they're quite hazardous, obviously. I don't know why anyone had that.
That's a good point. There's a lot of things that we wonder why people have for their personal use. It's amazing what people bring in through our program. You name it, we probably got it.
Just have a couple questions. First one for Jeff. Is there any issues with mattresses where you cannot accept them?
We processed almost 4,000 mattresses and box springs. We've had about three, literally three that we've had to turn away because of bed bugs. So yeah, it's actually, some people are like, how can you tell there's bed bugs? You can tell, and because they feed on blood, and so they tend to make a mattress look pretty soiled. So thankfully that hasn't been an issue for us. We received a lot of wet mattresses from one customer we deal with that has them uncovered. We're able to dry those out. So that's really the only instance when we can't take them. We of course don't want to risk our facility with bed bugs and so that's not really an issue.
And then one more question for Jason. The materials that you're selling or that you're through your website, like the clothing and stuff, is it pretty reasonably priced? Like, is it comparable to what you can find in other online retail stores brand new, or is that more expensive?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the material for the most part, and being online, you do have to kind of factor in that there is usually like a $5 surcharge, if you will, for somebody to pick, pack, and ship the item, and then if you're paying for shipping. So aside from that, it's probably about the exact same price or a little bit less. But I get people asking me all the time, it's recycling, it must cost more. Or they ask me, it's recycled, it's going to be a lot less. They don't understand why it can't really, it's not really either of those. But typically, it's about the same price. And a lot of the times, I talk to somebody who's, for example, making this bag out of a tractor tire tube for me. About 30% of the process is, cleaning it, trimming it, getting it back to that stage one that everybody else who doesn't use recycling content gets to start at, and then going from there. So usually that's where most of the focus is trying to cut costs and time out of that part of it. And that, when people focus on that, then yeah, the pricing is about the same. At the same time, too, a lot of the items that are coming onto the site, there's nobody else out there selling anything out of those items before, so it's, you don't really get this kind of ballpark what reasonable price would be.
We're out of time, so can we just get one more question?
I understand this for Greg. Does snow sport equipment contain hazardous materials? And so is that
The fiberglass, because of the resins they use, is considered, if it's cured, then it's, if it's a pre-preg, you got a problem. If it's cured, then it's not.
I'm not sure curious.
Well, it just means that it's hard. So, yeah, that's a question, because a lot of industries are having trouble, especially the carbon fiber industry right now, because they have a lot of pre-preg, and it's interesting, in that sector, basically, what's happening is that there's an expiration date on that, and if it goes past that expiration date, especially being used in the aerospace industry, they cannot just dispose of it because they have a liability on their hands because of what the resins are using. So what they're doing is they're having to cure this, and then they can landfill it, that's the next big thing as far as composite materials of this carbon fiber, because the use is going out, and now it's moving into the automotive industry, and once that becomes ubiquitous in the automotive industry, now what do we do? So to a certain extent, carbon fiber hasn't really expanded because they don't have a really effective way to dispose of it.